Joe Schmidt has his 2 first games as Wallabies head coach under his belt, 2 good wins, although be it against a weak Welsh side, that must be said, but a positive start nonetheless. In this video, I want to look at what we can learn from these 2 games and maybe see what he's building towards for the future. They were only 2 games, so this won't give us the whole picture, but I think we can make some educated guesses based on what we saw. So let's get into it. When we look at these games from an overview perspective, we can see that the Wallabies are trying to be an attack-minded team while still sticking to the basics. I think Joe Schmidt understands the position that he's in. He understands that the Wallabies are in a pretty bad position at the moment, Australian rugby as well, and he understands that they're probably not going to take the world by storm within the next 2 years or so. He is seemingly not building a high-risk game plan that is going to see the Wallabies take the world by storm anytime soon. Rather, he's looking at building something a bit more sustainable that can go to the long term, and when the next head coach takes over from him, should that be the case, then the Wallabies will be in a better position than when he came in first. Australia's attacking approach is to create attacking threats out wide, and they do this in 2 ways. The first is that they are always trying to condense defenders in the middle of the field. So if you look at these 2 games against Wales, you can see that their attack structure was quite tight and condensed, and their pod structures themselves were quite tight and condensed as well. So their support runners ran a lot closer to the ball carrier. This ensured that they could also string together quite a high number of phases before they turned the ball over. And we can see this in the stats. In the first test, they made 151 passes to 130 carries. In the second test, they had 130 passes to 115 carries. So their passing stat is quite low compared to their carry stats because, like I said, they really focus on that area next to the ruck and trying to get as many defenders in that area as possible so that they can spread the ball wide and so that gaps can form on the outside. The second way that they try to exploit the space on the outside of the field is by constantly trying to see if there are opportunities for the crossfield kick. We saw a lot of these crossfield kicks, specifically from Lolesio to the outside of the field. And while it didn't work every time, it created a lot of danger moments for Wales. Now, one thing that should be mentioned about this is that it requires a lot of physicality from their forwards. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see them go for maybe a few more 6-2 bench splits in the future. This might also not be a very effective strategy against other teams that really focus on physicality, like South Africa or like England. When we look at their defending approach, it tended to be a little bit more passive with not a lot of risks. During these games, there were a lot of drift defensive lines and not a lot of players shooting up out of the line to try to steal the ball back a lot more quickly. So while this is good because they don't give away a lot of defensive penalties and it prevents the opposition from really getting clean line breaks, it might be a problem against teams that specifically focus on a high number of phases. And it can also be a problem against teams that focus on having a lot of physical runners because they might generate a lot of momentum because of their passive defensive lines. Now, I'm sure that they will adjust given the team that is in front of them, but I feel like they're not really building towards a defense that is built around getting the ball back as quickly as possible. When we do look at their weaknesses, I did see 2 weaknesses that I think other teams are really going to target when playing the Wallabies in the future. The first is that when Wales put up a box kick, I felt that their timing was a little bit off in receiving the ball. When your opponent puts up a pressure-based kick like the box kick or the crossfield bomb or a regular bomb, what's supposed to happen is that your catcher is not supposed to catch the ball alone. You are supposed to have a lot of retreating blockers to kind of make a shield around the catcher so that he can take the ball without a lot of pressure. And I think their timing was pretty bad here. Their catchers, for example, did not go up quickly enough to signify to the blockers when to stop, or their blockers just completely overran where the ball would have gone and prevented the catcher from really getting to the ball in the first place. This is going to be absolutely vital against a team like South Africa, who really specializes in these competing for the ball in the air situations. Now, this isn't a massive problem. I'm sure this can be fixed fairly quickly. However, the next one cannot be fixed that quickly. And that was that they had a lot of problems defending the maul. Their timing during the defense of the maul was quite off. I felt quite a few times. For example, they would try to dominate that initial hit when the maul starts, but a lot of times they just couldn't get that initial burst of momentum, and it allowed Wales to really set up a strong driving maul. Another thing is that when Wales got a lot of momentum during the maul, Australia weren't good enough in really trying to swing the maul and destabilize the maul when it got to that point. And I do think this is going to take quite a bit of time to fix. Maul defense is not really that easy. There's a lot of little things that need to be learned in order to stop it effectively. However, if they manage to get right in this area, then they'll have quite a well-rounded approach when it comes to their game plan. Overall, I think it's just an extremely exciting time to be a Wallabies fan. Like I said, a good start for now. However, I do think people need to maybe temper their expectations a little bit. I'd love to hear your opinion, what you think as a Wallabies fan, but I do think that expecting the Wallabies to maybe defeat New Zealand at any time during this year probably is not really that realistic. They might beat South Africa because for some reason South Africa travels really badly to Australia, so there might be a bit of an opening there. However, overall, I don't think it's fair to expect this team to really put up some great performances this year. However, I do think next year there could be a bit of pressure on the team to start putting up decent performances given that the World Cup is coming up. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments what do you think, and I shall see you guys next time. Cheers.